Hello, I'm Essay, your AI essayist. Please note that all content, audio and video in this presentation are AI generated. As AI can sometimes produce inaccuracies, I encourage you to verify any factual information presented. With that in mind, let's begin.
To situate Albert Einstein's unified field theory within the context of the year 1980 is to engage in a deliberate act of historical and conceptual parallax. Einstein passed away in 1955, his final decades consumed by a quest that his contemporaries largely viewed as a quixotic detour from the main currents of physics. The year 1980, therefore, serves as a powerful vantage point, a moment in time sufficiently removed from Einstein's life to assess his ultimate ambition with a clarity unavailable to his peers. By 1980, the standard model of particle physics had achieved a stunning, albeit incomplete, synthesis, and the very language of fundamental theory had evolved in ways Einstein would have found both foreign and fascinating. To examine his unified field theory from this later standpoint is to uncover a narrative of profound irony, the story of a visionary who correctly identified the destination of physics, unification through geometry, while charting a course with tools that the quantum revolution have rendered antique. The enterprise was a magnificent failure, yet its intellectual architecture and philosophical motivations cast a long, elegiac shadow over the subsequent half-century, a testament to a grand vision that continues to animate the deepest inquiries of modern science. The genesis of Einstein's obsession with unification lies in the monumental success of his own creation, the general theory of relativity. Published in its complete form in 1915, general relativity represented a conceptual apotheosis. It transformed gravity from a mysterious force acting at a distance into an intrinsic property of the cosmos itself. The theory described gravity as the curvature of a four-dimensional spacetime manifold, with the geometry of this continuum dictated by the distribution of mass and energy within it. The mathematical object at the heart of this revolution was the symmetric metric tensor, represented as G sub mu nu, a collection of 10 independent functions that define all geometric properties of spacetime, such as distance and angles. The Einstein field equations, a set of 10 coupled nonlinear partial differential equations, provided the dynamical law connecting this geometry to its physical sources. The sheer elegance of this formulation, where physics became geometry, was intoxicating. It stood in stark contrast to the other fundamental force known at the time, James Clerk Maxwell's electromagnetism. While Maxwell's equations were a triumph of classical physics, describing electricity, magnetism, and light within a single coherent framework, electromagnetism appeared as a field existing on the spacetime stage. Gravity, in Einstein's new picture, was the stage. This asymmetry was, to a mind like Einstein's, an aesthetic and philosophical offence, a cosmic inelegance that demanded correction, inspired by this perceived disharmony, and spurred by the early, intriguing work of Theodore Kaluza and Oscar Klein, who proposed unifying gravity and electromagnetism by postulating a hidden fifth spatial dimension. Einstein embarked on what would become a 30-year intellectual odyssey. He sought a more comprehensive geometric structure, a master theory from which both general relativity and Maxwell's theory of electromagnetism would emerge as special cases. His approach was resolutely geometric and classical, reflecting the conviction that the universe, at its most fundamental level, must be governed by simple, deterministic laws embodied in a unified field. Over the decades, he explored numerous mathematical avenues, from theories involving torsion, a twisting of spacetime, to his final and most developed approach based on a non-symmetric field theory. This latter program represents the culmination of his efforts and provides the clearest window into his thinking. The central gambit was to generalize the metric tensor, the very heart of relativity. He proposed a fundamental tensor, which we can again call G sub mu nu, that was devoid of the constraint of symmetry. This 16-component object could be decomposed into two distinct parts. Its symmetric part, calculated as 1/2 of the sum of G sub mu nu and G sub nu mu, was designed to recover the standard metric tensor of general relativity and thus describe the gravitational field. The genius of the proposal lay in the other piece, the antisymmetric part of the tensor, calculated as 1/2 of the difference between G sub mu nu and G sub nu mu, was a 6-component object intended to represent the electromagnetic field. Within this single, more general mathematical object, both gravity and electromagnetism could in principle reside. The immense challenge, which consumed Einstein's final years, was to discover the field equations that would govern this unified field. He needed a law of cosmic structure so fundamental that, when applied to his non-symmetric tensor, it would naturally cleave into two sets of equations: the established Einstein field equations for the symmetric part and the Maxwell equations for the antisymmetric part. His search involved defining a generalized affine connection, the mathematical tool that describes the parallel transport of vectors on a manifold, and from it, a generalized Riemann curvature tensor. The goal was to construct a Lagrangian, a function representing the theory's dynamics, of the utmost formal simplicity. He believed that the final, true law of nature would be one of almost self-evident mathematical necessity. This quest for a unified description of the classical world was an act of profound intellectual faith, a belief that the perceived duality of the forces was a failure of human understanding, a veil of complexity, that a deeper geometric principle would live. While Einstein toiled on this classical edifice, the rest of the physics world was engaged in a revolution of a different sort. The development of quantum mechanics throughout the 1920s and 1930s have revealed a subatomic realm governed by principles of probability, uncertainty, and discreteness that were utterly alien to his deterministic worldview. His famous discomfort with quantum theory, encapsulated in his assertion that God does play dice with the universe, was more than a philosophical preference. It was a deep-seated belief that a complete theory must be causal and continuous. This conviction placed him in a position of increasing intellectual isolation. As physicists like Heisenberg, Schrödinger, Dirac, and Bohr unveiled the strange and powerful machinery of quantum field theory, Einstein's work on unification appeared to many as the magnificent obsession of an old master, a genius out of touch with the very revolution he had helped to ignite with his one innate work on the photoelectric effect. The reception of his unified field theory papers, particularly those published in the late 1940s and early 1950s, was consequently muted. The physics community was preoccupied with challenges far removed from Einstein's classical program. Two new fundamental forces, the strong and weak nuclear forces, had been discovered, rendering his attempt to unify only gravity and electromagnetism seeming complete from the start. The successful application of quantum electrodynamics, or CAD, which described the interaction of light and matter with astonishing precision, demonstrated that the path forward lay in quantizing fields, embracing uncertainty. Wolfgang Pauli, a famously sharp critic and one of the deepest thinkers of the quantum generation, was particularly dismissive of these classical unification attempts, viewing them as sterile mathematical exercises disconnected from experimental reality. Einstein's solitary pursuit became a poignant symbol of a generational and philosophical divide. He was building a marble cathedral of classical determinism on an island, while the mainland of physics was being reconstructed with the strange new materials of quantum probability. Here, the vantage point of 1980 becomes transformative. By that year, the landscape of unification had been reshaped in a way that both vindicated and subverted Einstein's vision. The Weinberg-Salm-Glascher model had successfully unified electromagnetism and the weak nuclear force into a single electroweak theory, a monumental achievement that earned its architects the 1979 Nobel Prize. This unification was, in a profound sense, geometric. Its mathematical foundation was gauge theory, a framework that describes forces as arising from a requirement that the laws of physics remain unchanged under a set of abstract symmetry operations. In this picture, force-carrying particles like the photon and the W and Z bosons emerge as the quanta of gauge fields, which can be understood mathematically as connections on a sophisticated geometric object known as a fiber bundle. This structure consists of the familiar four-dimensional spacetime manifold with an abstract internal symmetry space attached to every point. This new geometry was the key to unification, but it was a geometry of a type Einstein had envisioned. He had searched for unity within the tangible geometry of spacetime itself by enriching the metric structure of the manifold. The successful electroweak unification and the subsequent development of quantum cryptodynamics for the strong force found unity in the abstract, internal geometries of quantum fields. The fundamental symmetries were degrees of freedom separate from spacetime, coordinates. In retrospect, Einstein was looking for the right thing, a deep geometric principle, but he was looking in the wrong place. The view from 1980 reveals his work as prescient in its ambition and its insistence on a geometric foundation for all of physics. However, it also reveals the profound limitations of his classical intuition. The geometry of the universe was proving to be stranger and more abstract than even he had imagined, deeply interwoven with the probabilistic logic of the quantum world he found so unsettling. The legacy of Einstein's final quest is therefore complex and multifaceted. In terms of direct application, his specific non-symmetric field theory produced no verifiable predictions and has been superseded by the quantum gauge theories of the Standard Model. It remains a historical curiosity, a road explored and abandoned, yet its indirect influence is immense and undeniable. The sheer force of his conviction, the decades he dedicated to the ideal of unification, enshrined this goal as the ultimate prize in theoretical physics. He elevated the search for a single, comprehensive theory from a philosophical hope to a concrete scientific program, the modern pursuit of a theory of everything, a framework that would unite the standard model's gauge theories with Einstein's own theory of gravity, is the direct intellectual heir to his lonely struggle. String theory, loop quantum gravity, and other contemporary approaches to quantum gravity are all, in their own ways, attempting to complete the task he set for himself. They seek a unified geometric principle, though now it must be a quantum geometry, that can encompass all known forces and particles. In conclusion, Einstein's unified field theory, assessed from the historical promontory of 1980, is an idea that failed in execution but triumphed in inspiration. It stands as a powerful lesson in the nature of scientific progress, demonstrating that the conceptual framework of one generation may be insufficient for the ambitions it fosters in the next. The work itself, a beautiful but barren classical formalism, was eclipsed by the fertile, counterintuitive world of quantum mechanics. Yet, the spirit behind it, the unwavering belief in the simple, elegant, and unified reality governed by geometric law, was profoundly vindicated by the successes of gauge theory. Einstein's final project was an unfinished symphony, a composition whose themes were too grand for the classical instruments he insisted on using. The physicists of 1980 and those who follow them have picked up the score, and though they perform it with the strange harmonies of quantum mechanics, they are still, in a very real sense, playing Einstein's music. His quest remains the ultimate expression of the physicist's faith that beneath the apparent complexity and diversity of the cosmos lies a single, breathtakingly simple idea.
We really appreciate you tuning into this AI-powered presentation. Our goal is to push the boundaries of AI in content creation, and your input is invaluable. If there's a particular subject you'd like to see us tackle next, or if you have suggestions on how we could fine-tune our AI's creative prompts, please don't hesitate to leave your ideas in the comments section. We're excited to bring you more unique content very soon.